Good morning. I'd like to thank everybody for taking the time to join us this morning from coast to coast for our webinar. We'll be discussing how you can protect your business from security threats with Office 365. My name is Isaac Ling, Senior Sales Manager for Central and Eastern Canada Sales at CDW Canada. And before we start today, I wanted to announce a CDW offer that is available for a free migration of Office 365 on CSP for up to 50 mailboxes for the first 100 customers. And so if you're interested in that offer, please contact your CDW account manager today. And so with that, I'd like to introduce Bernatt, who is the Product Marketing Manager at Microsoft. Bernatt manages Microsoft 365 marketing for partners in Canada and is an 8-year veteran of Microsoft. He's held roles in customer and partner satisfaction, business planning, and operations. And prior to Microsoft, Jared also held a variety of marketing roles at Hershey in Canada and the United States. He's passionate about partners and customers ensure they reach their potential and enhance their lives by leveraging the best technology it has to offer. Throughout the webinar, Jared will be exploring how you can identify potential threats that can harm your organization and how you can protect yourself from advanced cyber threats, safeguarding your company's data. I also like to let everyone know at this time that throughout our session today, feel free to drop any questions you might have in the Q&A field in this WebEx. We'll be answering as many questions as we can throughout the webinar, and if there are any that we're unable to get to, we'll be sure to contact you directly. With that, I'd like to hand it over to Jared.
Hey, thanks, Isaac, but more importantly, of course, thank you, Isaac. More importantly, thank you to the customers and those on the phone on the webinar attending. And security is obviously something that's really top of mind for all of us. I think we wake up every morning and we hear different news coverage about breaches at large organizations. And we also know from our research that security is the #1 topic on CEOs' minds these days. And when I talk about CEOs, I'm talking about businesses of all sizes, whether they're the enterprise customers at the banks or the small mom-and-pop shops trying to make a living day to day. Security is top of mind when it comes to technology and technology roadmaps for those organizations. So thank you for joining us, and obviously security is a hot topic for you and your customers and your businesses. So thanks for joining, and over the next 30 to 40 minutes, we'll take a look particularly at Office 365 security and cover a little bit more about the Microsoft security story as well, and how our security investments help you as an organization serve your end customers. So over the next few minutes, we'll talk about protecting you against advanced cyber threats. We'll talk about detecting issues before they happen. The way we look at things quite often is protect, detect, and respond. So keep that in mind as you think about your security posture. You want to detect, protect, and respond. And by doing so, you're safeguarding your most sensitive data. And when we talk about data, we talk about data at rest and data in motion over the internet, of course. We also talk about managing identities, and we also talk about managing devices. These are really the 3 pillars of security management when it comes to our story and security with respect to our customers. And of course, all of this comes out of a great solution that we offer from a productivity suite perspective, and that's Office 365. And of course, we'll look at Office 365 towards the end very quickly, but remember, Office 365, the days of being Word, Excel, and PowerPoint only are over. Office 365 has a whole host of applications and services for you to help run your business. So when we think about Office 365, I want to make sure that we think about it in a broader sense of an incredible cloud services solution that CDW can offer to you. Now, when we take a look at the world at large, we obviously live in a much smaller world these days. What we're seeing is 4 billion records exposed in the last year. And again, this is the news we hear, Isaac, in the morning about Uber and Facebook. I mean, this number only grows every day. This is an interesting one, 140 days between infiltration and detection. So imagine, and I know that this is perhaps a pedantic example, but imagine somebody's in your house, hiding under your stairs for 140 days and you don't know they're there. On day 141, they come out and say, boo. Right? Think about somebody in your infrastructure, in your data environment that's sitting around and snooping for 140 days before you even detect them. 52% of large organizations have reported a data breach in the last 12 months, What you don't see is the remaining 48% just don't know they had a data breach. But seriously, this is 52% of organizations that actually reported it. 45% of organizations actually lack data governance. And again, I think that this group of customers on the phone with your security opportunities and challenges should really think about that security plan, that data plan. It's absolutely critical that each organization individually works with their partners like CDW to ensure that they do have a data governance plan. And that data governance plan needs to protect all endpoints, infrastructure, data, devices, and identity. And of course, before we get into our unique approach on how we serve you, our customers, things change every day. Something that you may or may not be aware of is GDPR. This is the new data protection regulations that the EU has instituted starting next month. And although we're not in the European Union, if we're doing business with folks in the European Union, we actually have to be compliant with respect to their privacy rules. So when we think about security, we also think about compliance. Very different, but still something we need to consider almost in a duality perspective. Now, before we get into the solution of Office 365, we talked about sort of the environment. It's a scary world of cyber threats. Cyber threats are becoming more sophisticated. We know security is the #1 topic on all businesses' minds. Well, how do we at Microsoft help you, our customers, and CDW and our customers think about security? And when we take a step back, we look at these 3 pillars. We look at a platform, and that's where we're going to be spending our time today. Office 365 is a platform. We talk about intelligence. I'll show you what that means briefly in just a sec. And we talk about partners, and I don't mean partners in the traditional sense like CDW. I mean partners like the Canadian government, where we're actually linked into their cybersecurity data centers and giving them real-time information on security threats, so the government has the latest information with respect to what we see from a trend perspective. But we'll spend our time on platform, but I do want to show you what the intelligence really means. So what we learn at Microsoft helps our customers stay safe, because we have a ton of learnings I want to share with you. And one thing that's absolutely critical to understand is Microsoft is actually the largest technology security company in the world that nobody knows about, right? We've got some great competitors that have some great solutions, but we actually are larger from a R&D and sales perspective because of the breadth that we have. So when it comes to security, I just want to make sure that this group of customers and CDW understands that we are a very serious player with protection across our platform. And because we have this intelligence that we gather, we really have this unique perspective because of the technology that we build and operate and the signals that we see from sensors from all of our clients to the back-end cloud solutions. And we share that with our customers and partners. So I'll give you an example. We hire and share key elements of raw threat intelligence specific to Canada with the Canadian Cyber Incident Response Center. This is what I was alluding to before with respect to partners as part of Public Safety Canada. And this intel is actually used to help protect critical infrastructure providers in Canada. My point here is that the government is working with us from a security perspective because they believe in our security posture. But I'll move on from selling our security investments to this group and more importantly, how our security posture can actually help you and run your business. So we have this incredible security graph. We're doing 450 billion user authentications each month through Azure, through Office 365, through Hotmail, through Xbox Live. We've got 1 billion Windows devices updated where we're receiving real-time information and 400 billion emails analyzed for spam and malware, but not read. Some of our competitors read your email, we don't read. We just analyze for spam and malware. And what this gives us is all of those signals that make our solution, Office 365, smarter, right? It's all about AI, it's all about learning and finding those trends, and that's what's truly built into Office 365. Now, when we get into Office 365, I do want to mention a few things, and then we'll get into the security functionality specifically. And by the way, if there are any questions, please do put them in the what we call the river in the chat box, and we'll do the best we can to answer them in real time. Now, Office 365 is a subscription service. You can always scale up or scale down. You know, you're moving your capital expenditure now into an operational expense, which is also great from the accounting perspective for most small and mid-sized businesses. You're getting the security updates monthly. You're getting feature updates twice a year along with Windows 10. And you know, you've got some great scenarios that Office 365 allows you to unleash, whether you're working from a mobility perspective, you're working from a collaboration perspective, or you're working in a teamwork environment. That's what Office 365 truly does offer you. Now, when it comes to security, we want to make sure that you're protecting what you value most. And you can really feel secure with Office 365, managing your data, protecting your company's devices, and making sure that you're working within your budget while giving your company that real competitive advantages. You've got features like mobile device management, right? MDM solution built right in. You've got DLP, which is data loss prevention, and rights management services. So your data will be secure and controlled by you. I'll give you an example. I was working with a small business downtown a couple weeks ago, a law firm. They provide outsourced law services. And we were talking about this data protection situation and rights management. And I'd asked them, it's a nice little law firm, 5 boutique lawyers, some paralegals, you know, probably 15 people in the office. I said, how do you transmit your emails and data in a secure environment? And they're using Gmail. So I was a little concerned that they may not be taking advantage of security functionality that they really should be when you're dealing with those sensitive topics. So we went through how we can email safely using data encryption and rights management, and they were blown away. And frankly, if the Law Society ever audited them, they'd be in a much better position to indicate that they're protected and compliant from a security perspective. So those are the things that are inherently built in. You also have access to proven and reliable tools. We've got an SLA, obviously we're up 24/7 with 99.999% uptime, and if you have specific compliance needs with your organization, that's also manageable within the Office 365 environment.
So Jared, we had the first question actually.
Sure, Isaac, what's up?
So you kind of mentioned MDM.
Sure.
And so the question was, is it possible to wipe enterprise data from BYOD devices when an Office 365 account is disabled?
Yes. Now, when you're working with Windows 10 too, right? So when we talk about the platform, and that's a great question, Isaac, that is the beauty that you're dealing with here. Now, we know that there's competitive products out there that do a great job, things like AirWatch to manage mobile devices, but Office 365 and Windows 10 working together lets you do that across a seamless platform. And I'll show you, I'm hoping to show you maybe what that dashboard looks like, but the answer is yes. If Mary leaves the company and she's got confidential information on her iPhone, you can hit the wipe button, and the next time she hits a Wi-Fi, that information is secure and protected. Great question. So when we talk about intelligent security, again, built into Office 365, we like to think about things in certain pillars and sort of life cycle, if you will. We talked a little bit about protect, detect, and respond. So the key with Office 365 is detecting issues before they happen. Now, sometimes what happens is something comes in, so it's made it into your environment, but you've detected it before propagation, before it actually screws anything up in your environment, if you will. And of course, most importantly, we want to safeguard your company's most important data. And what you'll see on this particular screen are some features, some speeds and feeds, and what we call stuff. And we'll get into what that stuff really means for you as a customer on how to make sure you're safe in the Office 365 environment, but this is sort of the top line of what those things look like. So you know what, let's go dive into a couple things. Now what I'm showing you here are sort of 6 major themes when it comes to O365 features and capabilities, what we call really our top features and capabilities. We talk about safe attachments, safe links, URL detonation. I said detonation, that's pretty serious stuff. Policy tips, message encryption, and multi-factor authentication. So these are the 6 top features and capabilities, and I'll go through each one of them a little bit deeper. When we talk about advanced threat protection safe attachments, what this really does is protects your organization from harmful attachments through safe attachments policy. So Isaac gets an email from somebody outside. They say, hey, check this attachment out. It's a cat singing with a monkey. You love cats. You love monkeys. You're going to open up the attachment. And all of a sudden, you have some malware potentially in your environment. What this does is it will block those attachments from propagating any further into the environment. So think of the attachment as one entry point for malware in your environment. And this is one feature in Office 365 that then stops that particular entry point.
So Jared, I actually have a question. It's sort of related. It's more directed at spam.
Sure.
So the Exchange functionality, does it include spam filtering as a customer? Can our customer, adjust the spam filter settings to whitelist a specific address or domain?
Absolutely. So there's obviously and that's a great question, there's the manual process, but then there's the relying on our intelligence security to also pick up those things from those 1 billion sensors that we get to ensure that that's actually being caught even before you know about it, because we're seeing those trends. But absolutely, you can what we used to call blacklist certain sites and certain things. Okay. Now, we'll move away from safe attachments. That was 1 of 6. Okay, we're going to go to 2 of 6 now, and that's safe links, right? So now we don't have an attachment, we have a link, and it's the same thing. We can create a custom blacklist for URLs, and again, all of this thing comes up in a compliance dashboard, and that's really where the action is from a security monitoring perspective. And Isaac, I'll show you what that looks like later, and I'll show this group what that looks like. I mean, because all of these things are things that sort of add up to one bigger picture for you to manage your Office 365 environment. So again, protect those folks in your organization, whether they're working in the office or mobily, with this safe links safety net built into Office 365. URL detonation. Okay, this actually prevents users from being compromised by files linked to malicious URLs. So we talked about the attachment, we talked about the URL. Well, now you've got a good URL that takes you to a crappy attachment, right? So we're taking a look at that potential chain, and we're remediating at that point. And again, this does show up on your dashboard, which will show up later. So those were the first 3 that really deals with that email intrusion perspective. Now let's talk a little bit about policy tips and data loss prevention. There's a lot of folks on the call, perhaps, and a lot of companies out there that operate in almost these semi-regulated or heavily regulated fields. I talked about lawyers and law firms. You don't have to be a nurse at a hospital to work for a small firm that might outsource nurses to, elderly homes as well. These are businesses that still require the same level of protection that the University Health Network would require, or Bank of Montreal would require, right? My financial guy, Jay, who has 3 customers and does my taxes, still has my personal information and needs to take that personal information as seriously as Scotiabank would. So data loss prevention capabilities really helps you identify sensitive information across many locations, whether it's email, whether it's Excel, PowerPoint, etc. It safeguards sensitive information from accidental leaks. It gives you policy tips on perhaps how you want to classify certain documents. And if they move out of context, they're sent an email notification with the policy tip information. Again, it's using intelligence built in to really steer you into certain data loss prevention policy tips that you can apply when you're dealing with sensitive information in your environment. This one's an important one. I alluded to this earlier, and this is Office 365 message encryption. And I talked a little bit about this 10 minutes ago with respect to my conversation with the boutique law firm downtown. And this is easy. It's a beautiful thing. Hopefully you can see the ribbon up top, and when you open up an email, you set your permissions, but you can go much deeper than just do not forward. You can put all sorts of encryption and sensitivity rights built in. So if I were to email Nadia or Isaac and they picked up this email on an iPhone, if their iPhone isn't registered through MDM, that particular attachment will not open. The rights protection will recognize that that device is not an approved device and it will not let you open. Then there are certain instances where you provide permissions for that device to open up those data files. and it won't let you take a screen capture or copy and paste, so you can take that information and put it onto your personal OneDrive, for example. So there's all sorts of rules and encryption capabilities within Office 365 that allows you to control that within the platform and really helps with data leakage, and if you have lost devices or emails going out that you wish didn't go out, again, it enables some level of protection built right into the platform. And the sixth pillar I want to take a look at is this multi-factor authentication. I think we've all seen this, whether we're in the world of business and commercial IT, or even on the consumer side, this idea that we require 2 levels of authentication. In fact, we have this at Microsoft. When I'm remotely dialing in, I get a nice little phone call, and I have an authentication application that I fingerprint on here, and we're allowed in. And this really helps you enforce that additional layer of security for user sign-ins and transaction, right? And again, this is all on a unified Office 365 admin center, and it establishes an authenticating factor that work best for your users, right? We use a mobile app. We can also use an SMS or a phone call. Some organizations will deploy certain authentication methods. Others will deploy.
Jared, I had a question.
Sure.
And so a lot of our customers on the call today will typically fall in one of 2 areas. One, where they've adopted 365 and they've done their migrations and things have been fully deployed, and others that haven't. And so more from the context of those that have Office 365 deployed, in your experience, for a lot of these tools, they're already baked in. How does the customer evaluate, because like you said earlier, Office just isn't about PowerPoint, Excel, and Word anymore, along with the Exchange functionality. How do customers, build the adoption, with something they've already deployed and purchased, essentially?
And that's the interesting part of a lot of what we deal with on a day-to-day basis, Isaac, is a lot of folks don't know what they have, I think, is what you're suggesting in some cases, right? So when you buy certain, depending on the suite they've purchased and deployed, a lot of this stuff will be built right in. It's just a matter of surfacing it, whether it's through the sales process and working with CDW consultants to help unleash that stuff. So I would invite these customers to come back and say, hey, help us along and we can help that. There's all sorts of self-service options on the web as well, but there's no shortage of help to help these customers unleash that, and I think you guys do a great job with that.
Yeah, definitely. And then for those on the other side, just to drill down again, is Office, we think of the productivity tools that we've all been using for decades essentially, but now why should I look at adopting Office 365 as a platform? It's the whole concept of today's webinar is that you're not just buying productivity products anymore.
Sure. So beyond the security capabilities, which I think are evident, right? You're always going to get, I shouldn't say always because that's definitive, but the chances that you're going to get far more secure in our cloud than having your server under your desk is I think that's evident. What becomes an interesting conversation is how do our workers want to work. So we know that in our customers' environments, we're seeing a millennial cohort come up, and they're going to make up 1/3 of the workforce. In fact, I think that's the case right now, as I look at a millennial in my room here for those on the webinar. And those folks are demanding certain capabilities, right? So there's a technical answer, Isaac, that they should move because they'll be more productive and all these services available. But there's also the need of the workforce that's demanding certain tools that we built into Office 365. So quite often what will happen is we'll go into an organization and they'll have shadow IT, right? They'll have folks posting sensitive documents on Slack or Google Drive. And the IT administrator has no idea that they're doing that. And those folks that are using those applications have no idea that Office 365 has the same functionality and even more. So we go into a lot of businesses and they're using Slack, for example. Well, with Microsoft Office 365, we have Teams. And Teams is actually a far more rich product when it comes to functionality, both from a desktop and mobile perspective. So it comes back almost to your first question is, You've got all of these incredible services built in, whether it's OneDrive, cloud storage, whether it's Teams, Skype for Business, beyond the productivity tools, but it's also understanding what you're getting and how to unleash it.
Definitely.
Okay?
Awesome. Thank you.
So that's multi-factor authentication, and I would encourage those on the phone to really take a look at this type of protection if you haven't yet rolled this out. So this is where all of it comes together in your Security and Compliance Center. Office 365 Threat Intelligence is that cloud-based service that provides you, our customers, broad visibility into your threat landscape. So it's a rich reporting, and actually recommendations are offered within the portal on threat intelligence. You can make data-driven decisions on your cyber security requirements, gain insight to where threats are manifesting themselves, who is being threatened, the frequency of these threats. So we've got all of this information coming through Office 365 through some of the features we showed you earlier. And now where does all of that get reported? And that gets reported in the security demo. I'm going to demo the Security and Compliance Center for you. So just give me a sec here as I switch screens. And this is what it looks like. Hopefully you have no problem seeing that, and it's come up. Thank you for confirming. So this is where you go as an organization and say, what's really going on in my environment? So I'll open up this right menu here. And you can see some of the top level menus. You can see what alerts have come in, right? So you can go to your dashboard here. I'm using a demo tenant here right now, so you may not see a ton of information. And any information you see is actually false information. And the beauty is, as you go into this compliance center, and any admin center actually for Microsoft, is you get a wizard to help you along. It recognizes you're new to this, you're just opening this up for the first time, and it actually gives you some tips and tricks and a wizard and some various wizards to help you move along. So thank you for that. So if we did have certain alerts, they'd show up here on our dashboard, and we can take a look at activity alerts, security alerts, and actually manage advanced alerts. I'm not going to get too far into this right now because of the time, but I did want to, again, make sure that you were exposed to what this one dashboard looks like from an alert perspective. And then we can take a look, and this is fantastic. It can actually analyze trends and patterns in your organization to see what's really going on specifically to your organization in a one dashboard perspective. So as we go down, we can view the specific alerts. We can set our alert policies. Again, you can see one here, mails have been delayed. This is an alert, what happened? And then specifically search for other alerts that may have come in. From a permissions perspective, what you can do here is assign permissions to the people in your organization so they can perform tasks in this control panel. This is not giving Isaac rights to send emails for your organization. That's all done through Office 365 Admin Console. This is specifically to the Security and Compliance dashboard. Who do you want in your organization to be able to view what I'm showing you here now? And again, it's very simple, easy to use, easily to create and save. Everything's fairly intuitive and sort of big and chunky in these dashboards. It's not sort of 8-point font and difficult to navigate. So that's your permissions view. Then you can get into labeling, label policies and sensitive information types. Again, there's all sorts of security and compliance policies you can add here, sensitive information types, anything from, all sorts of different bank account numbers, passport numbers. So you can actually load what this looks like, and then it actually scans the environment and finds some of these things if you do have sensitive
So we had a question related to this that came from our audience. So they're asking, so if they have a SIM set up, can these alerts be sent via syslog to their SIM?
I believe through the administration rights, there are ways to get the alerts, but I will follow up on exactly how those alerts get distributed.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Now, from a data loss prevention, we talked a little bit about this from a compliance perspective. We can set our policies here to protect our organization's sensitive information, to make sure that information and emails and documents isn't shared with the wrong people, and this is absolutely critical. So this is where your data loss policies come into play. And again, any of those DLPs that do get abused show up here in the dashboard. And we also link out so you can learn more specifically about data loss prevention. Again, very intuitive, very easy to read, nice graphical interface, and links out to more information on these specific topics. Here's some app permissions. You know, this is the idea of shadow IT and where you can go in terms of actually managing what applications are in your environment. This takes you to another cloud-based dashboard that I'll show you in just a sec. And this is specifically for your app management. Again, a real simple link out. Here's our app permission in my demo tenant. Okay? And you can see that you've got two applications, both with fairly decent permission levels, last authorized on these particular days. Okay? Let me go through some of these things, and you'll see what this really means when it comes to bringing this to life. Let's go under Discovered Apps. So what this is doing is it's scanning my environment for all sorts of different applications, whether it's shadow IT or approved applications. So you can see that we come in green. We actually score 10 out of 10. Okay, so we actually score these applications from a risk perspective. And you can see Google and Red Hat, lots of these organizations are well up in the green. As you scroll through the list, you can see that there's some applications that some folks in your environment may be using that aren't as safe as you'd want them to be as an administrator. You're getting down to some 8s. Citibank accounting, looks like you had 14 employees at bank there, because you can see what the traffic looks like in the users. But now we go down, 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 and you see all of these applications. Glip, online meetings, right? Why aren't you using Microsoft Skype for Business? You scan down, now you're getting into some of those applications that may be more susceptible to risk. And again, here's where you can manage and control those applications in your environment. You also have the activity logs, your user and accounts on who's accessing what. Then you also have the control. I'll show you what that looks like, and I do apologize for going through this rather quickly in the spirit of time, but the idea here is to show you the richness of information that's available to you to manage securely in your Office 365 environment, right? So here's your different folks, their emails, the groups they belong to, et cetera, et cetera. So this is specifically about cloud app security. We're going to go back to our Microsoft 365 Security and Compliance Dashboard, our Office 365 Security and Compliance Dashboard. So those were the policies related specifically to data loss prevention and cloud application management. From a data governance perspective, there's all sorts of different things we can do, whether it's add retention policies. For legal hold reasons, you may require specific retention policies, enabling extra storage for users. It gives you an idea of your content at a glance, your position on SharePoint, OneDrive storage, etc. So you can really see how your environment usage is going and trended over the last few months. And as an administrator, you want to understand this and understand from a business perspective how many users are being productive, where they're being productive, and where your storage is being held and how much storage is being held in the cloud. From a threat management perspective, this is where you see your malware detections, email traffic, reported messages, again on a very simple dashboard. You can do actually an attack simulator to see how secure your defenses are. We're not going to go through that right now. Your data privacy. This is that GDPR dashboard. We talked briefly about GDPR, and that's the general data protection rules that the EU is rolling out on May 20th, and it gives you an idea here of what this is all about and what it means to your business. And again, this is built right into the dashboard. And you do want to make sure you're compliant with GDPR if you are doing business anywhere in the EU, whether you have suppliers or customers. You need to make sure that we adhere to those data protection regulations or the privacy regulations. And we've made it really easy because we've built that right in. You don't need a third-party consultant to come in and sort of do a diagnostics on your environment to make sure that you're GDPR compliant. Some search and investigation, your audit logs, e-discovery, a bunch of reports, right? You can manage your schedules, what folks are downloading when, policy matches, all sorts of great stuff. Again, I'm not a tremendous security expert, but I did want to show you this dashboard to ensure you understood as an organization how easy it truly is to manage your security environment within Office 365. Now, I'm going to go back to the PowerPoint deck real quick, and we'll start it up, because we are coming to an end very shortly, and I'm going to kick it back to Isaac in just a few minutes, and then we'll take a few more questions if they come in. There's sort of this unique idea that we have. We had this unique idea to help our customers understand their security score. So we came up with this great product and this great service that actually builds a secure score for our customers. And with Secure Score, say that 10 times quickly, we aim to help you get insights into your position by helping you better understand what security features you have enabled through the interface. Because what we also find is you may be on Office 365, but you haven't necessarily unleashed the power of all the security functionality. So this will sort of help you navigate and give you a risk score, and it will give you ideas on how to remediate certain security risks within your environment. So I wanted to share that with you briefly as well, and we'll make sure that there's more information coming to you on that on the follow-up. You talked a little bit about Office 365 going beyond the productivity suite that we're used to in PowerPoint. Right now I'm using, of course, Excel, Word, etc. But we want to take a step back. We want to get away from those individual things. We want to talk about working in a different way, working together. So we want you to worry less. So we talked a little bit about the security of Office 365 in the last 30 minutes, and that's what really drives the worry less messaging. We want you to work easier, right? We want you to be able to co-author documents. Isaac could be in Vancouver, I'm in Toronto. We're working on the same Excel PowerPoint. We're adding numbers, getting ready for the president's presentation or the board presentation, and I can communicate directly in that particular spreadsheet with Isaac in real time. We can conduct Skype meetings, video conferencing from anywhere in the world. It's a fantastic opportunity to work easier, break down barriers, be inclusive. Modern attachments, and what we mean by this is cloud-based attachments. If I'm on Office 365 and saving my files to the Microsoft Cloud OneDrive, I can send a link to that attachment that's going to be a few gigs rather than a 15 meg email that's going to clog bandwidth and mess up your storage, etc., and everything that goes along with those big chunky attachments. And shared notebooks. You know, we have this OneNote product that's built into Office 365, and I live in it on every day. It's my digital notebook. It's where I take my notes and meeting notes. If I have a laundry list of things to do, I put them on there. And the beauty of the cloud is, of course, it allows me to access it from my iPhone anywhere. And then it's working together, right? We worry less, we work easier, and we work together. Office 365 goes across devices and operating systems. It's always there when you need it. Get through your email faster. Get your documents no matter where you are. Search across the entire platform and give me some guidance and advice and teach me how to learn and use Office 365 better. Truly, that's what's within the suite. So now you want to know, well, what does that mean from a product perspective? Well, we talked about Word, Excel, and PowerPoint built into the traditional Office. We talked about OneDrive for Business. Of course, there's SharePoint underneath that. And we talked about communication. Of course, we talked about Outlook, Yammer. Yammer is your company's bulletin board. We talk about Skype for Business, your conferencing and instant messaging solution. Again, all built in to Office 365 and all built into the most secure productivity suite available to you. I think that's all I wanted to talk about specifically about Office 365. We covered that security is the #1 topic on all of our customers' minds, big and small. We talked about Microsoft's investment in security, all the signals we receive from our services that make us smarter every minute of every day. Then we talked about Office 365, particularly 6 areas: data loss prevention, identity, etc. And then we talked a little bit about Office 365 going beyond just Word and Excel.
Okay, awesome. So I wanted to ask a question. It wasn't asked from the audience today, but I've heard it from customers several times recently. And so obviously with the Office 365 platform, there's a lot of security functionality built in that you've outlined today very well. In market, there are so many different point products that, have these different functionality as well. And so what's Microsoft's perspective on, where customers, do you have any recos on, are there scenarios where it is recommended that, you can maintain your infrastructure with the various point products, or are there others where, hey, this is built in now and those are unnecessary? Just kind of generally, we don't have to get into specifics.
I can tell you, I get that question as much as you do.
Yeah.
And it's up to the customer.
Yeah.
Here's our position on it.
Yeah.
There are some great organizations out there that market and sell some great endpoint products and solutions. We know who they are, and they have a history in this space and a great reputation in this space. And as I mentioned before, Microsoft isn't necessarily seen as a security leader yet. We're building that profile. But what we do know is as we test our solutions against these endpoint providers, we perform at least at par or above. But at the same time, it's up to the customer in terms of what they want to run in their environment. So quite often what I'll say is, run them side by side. You're paying for Office 365, you have it anyway. You've got the security solution that you felt was required. Run them side by side until you have the confidence that the Office 365 security functionality can then displace that endpoint solution and save you some money. Because at the end of the day, when you take a look at a platform like Office 365, things are always going to sing in harmony when you're on the same platform, slightly better than when you may bolt something else on. Again, great solutions from our competitors, but don't fear that this solution doesn't have the same capabilities or more than those. And if you're not comfortable or you want to test that hypothesis out, run them side by side.
Okay, awesome. Another question from the audience that just popped up, and I think it's definitely good to bring clarity that when you have the different options of Microsoft 365 suites like E3, E5, can you give a little direction from a high level on, the functionality we talked about today, where that starts?
Sure. E3 is really where it starts. You want to make sure that you're in the enterprise suite, and I understand that many of the customers on this call, Isaac, are some, have a few hundred seats, and that's where they need to be in the enterprise. Right off the bat, E3. Some of the more secure functionality from advanced threat protection, for example, does come from E5. So a lot of the functionality we talked to today comes standard in E3, but some of it also comes in E5. I didn't want to sort of break down a SKU discussion today. I have to have that with you and the customer at a certain point, but you're absolutely right. Some of this functionality is not available in some of the base SKUs, and as you go up the solution suite chain with CDW will always guide you to the right solution based on what your needs are. We do not want to oversell you something you're not going to use, but we also want to understand what your objectives are from a security perspective. So great question, and you're absolutely right. Your $7 a month Office 365 is not going to have the same functionality as your $18 a month Office 365.
Thanks for that question, for sure.
Yeah.
Another question is to government, and so the question was, can Canadian government protected documents be stored in Office 365?
Great question. So, I wish there was a yes or no answer because each government agency, whether federal, provincial, or municipal, have their own rules. What we have seen, though, is 2 years ago, we being Microsoft, built 2 data centers in Canada to actually satisfy the needs of the Canadian government. All right, so part of our agreement to build these data centers in Canada was to host our Canadian government's information in a data residency cloud within our borders, which is when we opened up Toronto and Quebec, so there's redundancy. So there's varying levels of government adoption of Office 365, but it's there. It's definitely there, and the public sector is embracing the cloud more today than they did yesterday because they're starting to understand the value and the security proposition. I hope that answered your question. I can certainly pass you on to some of our public sector folks for more detail, but yes, the government has started to embrace this in a big way.
Okay, awesome. And so with that, I'd just like to share our offer again and also thank Jared for his presentation. And just to reiterate, the CDW offer that's available for free migration of Office 365 on CSP for up to 50 mailboxes for the first 100 customers. If you're interested in that or want to carry on a further conversation about a lot of what we talked about today, please contact your account manager. As we've talked about earlier, I know a lot of our audience has Office 365 deployed already, and this is just the next phase of really unlocking the true capabilities of your investment. And this isn't a security product pitch today. It really is building security into just everything we do, where it used to be just Excel and PowerPoint. And so with that, I want to thank everybody for joining us today and wish everybody a great day. Thank you very much.
Thank you.